morning, everyone. I'm Claudia Kriviak, Vice President of Corporate Planning and Development at the Ontario Centres of Excellence. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our next Innovation Partner presentation from the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, or CIPO. Here to present is Dumitru Olariu. Dumitru is the Business Development Officer at CIPO. The Canadian Intellectual Property Office, a special operating agency associated with Industry Canada, is responsible for the administration and processing of the greater part of IP in Canada. Please save your questions till the end, and when you have a question, please come up to the microphone in the back so everyone can hear the question. Please join me in welcoming Dumitru for his presentation.
Good morning, anyone. Our organization goal is to ensure that future Canadian entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized enterprises in general have at least the awareness or better enough knowledge when they deal with intellectual property issues so they can make wise business decisions, be more profitable, and in that sense contribute to Canadian economy. We will cover in this presentation a quick overview of intellectual property, why it's so valuable. Then we will speak about CIPO outreach initiative called Intellectual Property Case Studies. So that's how we reach to future entrepreneurs in post-secondary institutions. And finally, I will give you how it works to get such an intellectual property case study and an example of it. So intellectual property in general refers to creations of the mind. Might be inventions, might be literary, dramatic, artistic works, might be slogans, everything that deals with creation and may be followed by an intellectual property right in the sense that you control this creation. The most common type of intellectual property rights are patents, trademarks, trade secrets, industrial designs, and integrated circuit topographies and copyrights. So let's deal one by one and see a bit the differences that exist between different types of intellectual property. Patents. Patents deal with inventions. They are product, processes, machine, compositions of matter. And they, in order to be patentable, an invention has to be new, useful, and inventive. Patents are territorial, and you have an obligation to file a patent application in order to obtain that right. Once you file the application, the patent will last up to 20 years following that filing date. Trademarks. Trademarks deal with names, slogans, words, designs that differentiate products and services of different persons. You don't have an obligation to register your trademark. It's advisable to do so, but basic protection exists under the common law. If you decide to register, the trademark protection lasts for 15 years and may be renewed indefinitely for other 15 years. Trade secrets is another form of intellectual property protection, and it refers to any kind of confidential information that gives a company or someone a competitive advantage. It has to be confidential information to be kept secret. The way to protect that is by signing confidentiality agreements. The protection may last forever, but once the secret is disclosed, the protection is lost. Another form of intellectual property, industrial designs. The subject matter is a bit different. It refers to pattern, visual shape of a manufactured article, nothing to do with the functionality or the utility of the product, just the visual aspect of that product. You have an obligation to to file an industrial design application in order to obtain it right with the CIPO. And once it's registered, you get 5 years plus other 5 years, so a maximum of a 10-year protection. Industrial designs like patents and trademarks are territorial, so you can enforce them in that particular jurisdiction. Copyrights deal with literary, dramatic, musical, artistic works. You don't have an obligation to file a copyright application. It's advisable to do so. Canada is a member of main copyright conventions on copyright, so you may say that copyright are not territorial like patents and other forms of intellectual property, so you may get international protection for that. Just an example to see different forms of intellectual property that show in the same product. So this is an example of a patent. You have a Canadian patent for the iPod. iPod itself, it's the name of that product. So the name works as a trademark. And the shape that this product takes, it's considered, because it's original, it's considered industrial design. And you'll have examples of the trademark application for the name, an example of a patent associated with the same product, and also the industrial design. Why intellectual property is so valuable for businesses? First, it gives you a monopoly in the sense that you obtain an exclusive right on the market. So you may have a competitive advantage because you set up some boundaries where the other companies cannot enter. It's a very valuable asset. In some cases, it's the most valuable asset a company has. And this asset may be sold, licensed, traded as any other business assets. I mentioned that you have an obligation to file an intellectual property document when it comes to obtaining patent protection or industrial design. So we collect all these documents in databases, and it's very wise to search all these databases to see where what the others did in terms of obtaining a particular patent or register a trademark. We have databases on patents, trademarks, and industrial design and copyrights as well. So you may see from that document a very valuable information on the exclusive right. So you'll be able to avoid infringement by knowing exactly what right is associated with that particular document. You may find valuable business information. You find out who are your competitors, find sources of for your products. You may also find who is more active in a particular field of technology. And also you find very valuable, useful technological information as it's in the patent and industrial design documents, because there you'll have a full description of a product or a process. You'll have a full teaching how to replicate the invention or to do the design. So it's a very valuable piece of information. Second part of our presentation, it's about a very exciting program we started some time ago. It's called Intellectual Property Case Studies. We started first by inquiring and making inquiry about if the universities and colleges have such a need. So we realized that intellectual property is not present in many curricula of the universities. So we approached these universities and asked them what would be like a very powerful and also entertaining way of teaching intellectual property to students. So we decided with the idea to start a pilot project with the intellectual property case studies. And in 2009, we started with 6 such case studies. They were developed by McMaster University. And in 2011, we add other 2 case studies. We started the program, and it's quite popular. We added in 2011 and 2012 some videos with the summaries of case studies, so people will better understand the subject matter and participate in discussions when they will watch the video. We had a very positive feedback, so we delivered such more than 200 such case studies. 88% of the students say that they will embrace the IP following that exposure to intellectual property. And overall, it was a very positive impact. And we continued that initiative with intellectual property case study. And we always collect feedback in order to improve our product. How it works, the delivery model, professors, they may read on our website summaries of the of the case studies. They decide what would be suitable for their students, and they simply request such a case study. They receive a copy of the case study that will be sent for the students, and they also receive an instruction guide on how to conduct the discussion in class for that particular case studies. And if they are not familiar with the intellectual property issues and how to conduct the discussion, we may send for free again a discussion leader so that who will be able to assist them. We also may complement this intellectual property case study with a presentation. Students might prepare in advance by reading a presentation on intellectual property on our website, but if the professor decides so, he or she may request the delivery of such IP presentation on patents, might be on each type of intellectual property, also on trademarks. Let's review quickly one of the most popular, I would say, John Thompson intellectual property case study. It deals with the trade secrets, with non-disclosure, all these topics that are listed on the slide. It's developed for businesses and entrepreneurships program, amongst others. The summary of the case study, it's like a fairy tale story, but still very much related to real life. John Thompson, an entrepreneur, starts a business, and he recycles glasses, and the glasses are of different colors, and he needs to have like a sort of these glasses depending on the colors, because they will be able to increase the profit of the business that way. So what John does, it starts information. So the way to start, because he is a graduate of a college, he goes to the Office of Applied Research, and he gets some sort of advice of IP. So that's how the story goes, and the students get engaged with the case study, and they start a discussion on different IP issues that were mentioned before. I hope you got the feeling that intellectual property is a very valuable business asset, and knowing more about intellectual property prepares you to be more competitive in your business. CIPO is working with SMEs, but mostly lately with post-secondary institutions to deliver these intellectual property case study initiatives. And there are also other tools that might be useful for you in terms of outreach that you might be used. They are all free of charge. One would be the one that I mentioned, the intellectual property case studies, then bank of speakers. And you also have on our website some information for small and medium-sized companies exporting. So I only invite you to visit our website, where you have plenty of information that will help you start with a very sound intellectual property strategy. You may contact us. You may get general information from our client service center, but you may also get some sort of one-on-one advice from one of the regional advisors listed there. My name shows up for Ontario. Any questions? Can you use the microphone, please?
I was impressed by the course that you have developed with is IP.
Yeah, you inquire about the cost of all this delivery of intellectual property case study?
Not concerned about the cost. I'm just saying if the course is available to other universities across Ontario or Canada.
All kinds of universities may request such a case studies and across the country, not only Ontario. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking Dumitru for his presentation. Our next presentation this morning will be from Export Development Canada, and it will begin in just a few minutes. For those of you just joining us, I'm Claudia Kriviak, Vice President of Corporate Planning and Development at the Ontario Centres of Excellence. I would like to introduce you to our next speaker this morning from Export Development Canada. Joining us is Chris Evans, who is a Senior Account Manager with EDC. Export Development Canada is Canada's export credit agency, offering financial and risk management solutions to help Canadian businesses expand into international markets. If you have any questions, there will be an opportunity to ask them at the end of the presentation. Please join me in welcoming Chris to Discovery.
Thank you, Claudia. First of all, let me say how pleased I am to be at an innovation forum like this. For someone from an old-fashioned industry, effectively banking and credits insurance, it's a treat. And look forward to telling you how EDC is able to contribute to innovation in Ontario, in Canada. And specifically, I've picked an area that I know a little bit about, clean technologies, including, I'll describe what we mean by that, but as a kind of case for how EDC supports innovation in Ontario and in Canada. So the advance for the slides is good. So just a little bit on Export Development Canada. It's what's called an export credit agency. Every G8 country, every G20 country has one, and the role is to be essentially a bank and a supporter of, in other ways, but to support exporters with financing and contract support, bonding, to get goods and services out of Canada into foreign markets. So that's really in a nutshell what EDC does. It's not a federal department. It's a Crown corporation, and it's self-sustaining, operates on commercial principles. We see our appetite for financing, for credits insurance and bonding to be a little bit more, a bit wider appetite than the private sector. So expect us to take a bit more risk to support something that is eminently exportable and potentially having a significant impact and garnering good reputation for Canada when it is exported. An example is RIM BlackBerry. We were involved early with RIM BlackBerry, which became a global name. And we hope some of the names we're working on now have that future ahead of them. Okay, just briefly, just to give you a financial snapshot and a kind of a bit of data on EDC. Last year, we supported over 7,000 exporters. We think there are about 35,000 exporters in Canada, from someone acting as trading lumber in their basement as a one-person exporting operation to a sophisticated, large, integrated company like Bombardier or Research in Motion, for example. So we think we're working with about 20% of the market. Interestingly, of our exporters, almost 1,000, 896, undertook foreign investments last year. And this is a growing trend among Canadian exporters, that they're not just exporting from Canada's boundaries or from within Canada's boundaries, they're actually making investments in foreign countries, and we're supporting them in that new entity, whether it's a company or a division that they set up in a foreign country. This is really the future of exporting that that G8 and G20 countries are seeing, that their companies are going overseas and then setting up supply chains overseas rather than exporting from the host country. So we saw a 9% increase in companies doing that last year, for a total value of trade of almost $7 billion. We have a total of just over 1,000 Canadian exporters benefiting from our financing. One of the ways that EDC draws through Canadian exports is to finance foreign corporations. It may sound a little counterintuitive that we're in a banking syndicate with Tata, for example, in India, but when you think about it, Tata needs a lot of technology from Canada, a lot of things from Canada. And to induce them to buy Canadian goods and services, we lend money to them with the proviso that they do indeed, over the term of our loan, 2, 3, 5 years, whatever we negotiate, that they do buy from Canada. So this is a key way that we get Canadian goods and services pulled through, if you will, to foreign markets. And in terms of the relevance to GDP, we were connected with either financing or providing credit insurance or bonding. I'll go into our products a little bit more later, but we were connected with about 4% of our GDP, which is equivalent, by our calculation, to over 500,000 person years of employment. Okay, where is EDC internationally? Well, we have, at last count, I think it was 16 representatives internationally. First of all, we're all over Canada. We're represented in major urban centers across Canada, from Newfoundland to BC. But internationally, you see we're in developing countries. We're not typically in developed countries. We're in countries that are growing rapidly and where we see the potential for Canadian companies, even small Canadian companies, to export. So with the exception of probably Dusseldorf, we're really in developing countries. You see the BRIC countries are represented there: Brazil, Russia, India, China, BRIC M sometimes, Mexico as well. And the upper corner of the slide, if you can see that, you see the percentage of EDC's total business done in those markets. North America, 51%. Asia, about a quarter. And then Europe, South Central America, and Africa, the balance. Okay, I wanted to talk specifically at this innovation conference about EDC's work in the clean technology sector, how we're helping that sector, define the sector a little bit, and I hope you'll come away with a few ways that we can help this sector and help it grow. First of all, it's one of our corporate priorities this year. Our board has identified developing clean technology as an area that it wants to focus on. The two other areas, incidentally, are the aerospace program in Canada and Canadian exports to India, specifically for infrastructure in India. It's another area we're focused on. In clean tech, we know that banks are quite willing to finance a well-developed and large wind, solar power generation company. The public markets are willing to fund those companies as well. So where do we come in? We address what we call the bankability gap. And that's the gap between the equity that the initial owners and their backers have to come up with and later stages of capital. That later stage of capital could be a regular chartered bank, it could be other funds, other investors in the company. But it's that point at which the company is a little vulnerable because it can't quite get to be bankable yet, but it needs help to make an export. How do we find these companies? How do we know when it's ready for us to come in and work with them? Well, we work with a federal agency, you may have heard of this, called STDC, Sustainable Development Technology Canada, which itself has invested, to my knowledge, almost $1 billion in its several funds in pure startup, green and clean technology companies, power generation, smart grid, bioplastics. Many areas of clean tech have been invested in by STDC. So we try and take it the next step after STDC is involved. Just to say what we mean by clean tech, we mean that the transaction involves the use of proprietary or other advanced technology to directly reduce negative environmental impacts and falls within one of the STDC sectors. And notice the use of the word proprietary. It doesn't have to be patented. Be the assembly of what are otherwise fairly commonly occurring technologies, but the packaging of that solution could be unique. That, for us, is proprietary. Here's the sectors. Now, most of these sectors are fairly homogeneous. Biofuel, for example, covers energy from biomass. Soil remediation deals with soil and soil cleanup technologies. Energy infrastructure, smart grid, these are technologies to modernize the grid. We've invested as an equity investor and in other support for these types of companies. Transportation, principally vehicle components. Recycling and recovery, that's a subsector that deals primarily with solid waste technologies. Industrial processes is an interesting one. Air and water purification, fluids purification, and prior to being released to the environment from industrial technologies. Waste and wastewater deals with all the water treatment technologies. Canada has a great name in wastewater and potable water treatment, and a number of our companies that we support are in the water and wastewater sector. The two large ones, power generation and energy efficiency, are a bit more diverse. Power generation, wind, solar, geothermal, even tidal power. We've looked at pitches from tidal power companies. So how does EDC provide this support? I've mentioned financing. So that I've covered off in the first point there, the banking function. So the banking function includes financing exporting companies, and this is usually financing provided as a guarantee to a bank. That's our preferred way of operating. The bank has the ability to monitor the company, in its day-to-day activities. If we provide a guarantee, we know the loan is, we know we're supporting the loan, and we know the loan is going to be well managed and looked after. We can finance directly for instances where a Canadian company is going overseas, and in the U.S. We include U.S. as exports as well. In fact, we're doing one right now for a chemical process company that has a pilot plant in the U.S., and no Canadian bank was interested in following that company down there, so we're financing that company directly. It's a small loan for their pilot project, approximately $300,000, but it'll allow them to do a demonstration plant to sell what they believe will eventually be an $8 to $10 million sale to an integrated alcohol fuel production company. The second type of support EDC gives is the insurance function. When you sell in a foreign country, the buyer's naturally skeptical and will want you to post a bond of some sort. We step in your shoes and provide that bond to make the foreign buyer feel more comfortable, and to avoid the necessity of you having to post cash collateral or some other support so you can be bonded. So that's a bit of a primer on EDC, the actual things we do to support companies. Incidentally, the other ECAs of other countries, US Exim in the US, SACE in Italy do similar programs. So this is kind of a theme, a common theme you'll see with export credit agencies. So how do we provide support in clean tech? Again, we can directly finance or guarantee clean tech projects with foreign buyers. What if you don't have a foreign buyer? What if you need to show domestically the project before any foreign buyers will consider buying? Well, we've actually used the showcase argument, the domestic showcase argument before, although we're Export Development Canada. We've used this to say that this is a company that has a great idea, a great process or product in this sector that needs to prove it domestically before it can be exported. So we have supported domestic projects as well. And in terms of how do we go the extra mile for clean tech versus our regular industries, which are our meat and potatoes, frankly, but how do we go the extra mile? Well, we take on a little bit of extra risk. We might provide bonding for a longer tenor. A solar project, which has a 10, 15, 20-year life, would need a long term of bonding support. So I see the time is just about up. I did want to show one slide, and that is to show you where we are willing to come in to back an innovation. R&D testing of prototypes, that's too early for us. Prototypes is STDC's domain. They're the ones to approach if you're developing or have developed a prototype. It's between the stages of demonstration and early commercialization that we're interested. So there's been extensive testing of a prototype, very similar to the commercial unit you're going to sell. You don't actually have to have sold one on a commercial basis. It can be a pilot to approach us to finance or back the production of a pilot with an export or domestic showcase client. So I'll leave it there. Just wanted to review what we have done in the past year. We did 10 transactions in this sector across Canada last year in wind, solar, bioplastics, and efficient lighting. We're projecting to double that number in 2013. We're working on initiatives with new international partners. And eventually, we want to integrate clean technologies along with our 6 other major sectors that we have. So we want to integrate this into our activity so it becomes normalized and part of our everyday support we give the sector. So here's the clean tech team in Ontario. My colleague Rod in Toronto and Jay in southwestern Ontario based in London. Look forward to your questions before FedDev is up as the next speaker. Any questions? Yeah.
Do you provide the insurance services to companies that export services rather than manufactured units?
Okay. Yes, to the extent that the contract needs to be, the payment for the contract needs to be supported. So yes, for goods shipments as well as service shipments, we're able to give credits insurance, make sure you get paid. Yeah.
Would you do bonding for 2 kinds of things? One is visual effects being produced for international, and 2, bonding for SRAD, OMDTC, shreds, IRAPs. Would you do bonding on advanced lending, on tax credit programs and grants?
Okay, so to the first one, for example, visual effects contract, yes, we would bond that because they typically contain progress payments that your international customer would send a payment, but then would say, well, I want a bond back to assure that my payment is secure. So yes, we would support that. And also, eventually, they want to be sure that whatever you're producing works and that it works within spec. So a warranty bond or performance bonds normally required there, and we do support for visual effects, for example. Yeah. In terms of shred or IRAP,
or film credits.
Right. Generally, if the bank will support this, they will come to us seeking our guarantee to them. So yes, we support these programs, but it's indirectly through the bank. The financing you'd have to negotiate with the bank, then the bank would come to us.
If you want to go to private lenders and get bonds, get guarantees on film credits of the great variety of them,
Right.
Digital TV film, or shreds or IRAPs,
Right.
can one go to EDC first and then get private financing based on EDC?
Yeah,
guarantee?
I would say that we work typically through the banks who know our program, our guarantee program, and we're comfortable we'll use the guarantee properly. I know we've got a specialty group that does film and media, and I can take your name and put you in touch with those people in terms of those kinds of credits.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for taking the time to be with us today. Our next presentation this morning will be from FedDev, and we will be starting in a few minutes. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our next innovation partner presentation this morning from the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario. Taras Olariu is Director, Program Policy and Innovation. FedDev Ontario acts as an investor, convener, and advocate to support the development of a prosperous and globally competitive Southern Ontario economy by supporting innovation and commercialization, business growth, productivity, and communities. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end of Taras's presentation. Please join me in welcoming Taras to Discovery.
Hi, everybody. As usual, it's good to be over here at OCE. I think every year we have this great sort of opportunity to really interact with people who we would certainly are interested in helping, certainly are interested in working with us. Today, it's not going to be a rundown of the technical details of what we do, although if you have those questions, please ask them. I'll be more than happy to present them and help you with them. Again, there's opportunity for questions afterwards, and also our booth over there, number 705, the Jobs, Growth, Prosperity banner. I'll be there a little bit after as well if you have any other questions. What I'd really wanted to speak to today is a little bit of where we came from, what we're doing, and some of the stuff that we've accomplished. As you know, I think we've essentially committed all of our funding for this fiscal year, and we're on the cusp of relaunching actually for next fiscal year as well. But we still do work with companies and not-for-profit associations and others in very many different ways. Of course, any agency is most popular for its funding, but there are a whole bunch of other things that we do, and I want to briefly present them to you and see really how we can help you in achieving your goals. So it's just really I wanted to provide an overview. The agency. We're over here, our head office is in Kitchener. We're in Peterborough, Ottawa, and Toronto as well. Those are three of the regional offices. Most of our contacts, though, come through Kitchener. If you're in a region outside of one of these, that's usually what happens. So Peterborough in Eastern Ontario, Toronto being Toronto, of course, GTA, and Kitchener for anything, all of Southern Ontario, really, and west of it as well. That's our catchment area. You can see 12.3 million of us, 354,000 businesses, 35 universities and colleges, 288 communities. That's pretty impressive. That is actually, therefore, represents an enormous amount of talent, of resources to leverage, and a lot of things really exciting that we can do. So this is really our catchment area. Our mandate, again, we build strategic collaborations and partnerships, helping to advance your interests, really. But there's really three key areas that we do that within, and I think this is really important to talk about, is that there's three really key areas. And it is in technological innovation. So this is how we develop the economy of Southern Ontario, through technological innovation, through business development. We'll talk briefly about what that means as well, and through community economic development. The technological innovation is really company-driven, business-led technology innovation. There's an enormous amount of other types of funding for other types of innovation, and honestly, there's a wealth of them out there in the different aisles, and so I encourage you guys, also ladies and gentlemen, to take a look at their opportunities as well. But we do that all business-led, and that's really what it is. It's about the businesses and about the economy. Again, we started in 2009, and we had a few different, phases. One really was responding to the recession. It was trying to get the money out on Monday so the job starts Wednesday, right? There was, try to invest in the players that would see us through and be in the best possible shape after the recession. We then got into the Southern Ontario Advantage, which is the initiatives where we then started to frame really where the long-term and the mid-term opportunities for Southern Ontario were. And that's where we are today. And we're looking forward to a rather bright future as well. The Southern Ontario Advantage, they were launched in 2010. This is 2013. And now we're renewed in budget 2013, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So in budget 2013. So we also do a delivery agent. We've given about $450 million in short-term stimulus funding from 2009 to 2011. Regional delivery of national programs, like infrastructure programs. We don't just do technological, there's infrastructure programs, as well as the community futures programs as well. We still, dabble in that. So, for instance, the CIPO program, we administer that for Ontario, all of Ontario, and the community futures programs, we actually administer that for Southern Ontario. Outside of, these are the community futures development corporations. So our renewal, we got $920 million over 5 years, actually, which that begins in April 1st, 2014. So that's great because now we have time to plan, we have time to talk to people such as yourselves, time to do roundtables, time to actually figure out what's the next sort of mission. And our mission, as you can see in the earlier slides, we still do. The mission hasn't changed. It's just that the structure of how we address that mission will be refreshed. I'll say it that way. Sort of evolved and made better, and that. So it's through technological innovation. We'll still be addressing that through in whatever way. We'll be doing it through business development and through community economic development, in addition to anything else we might get in, say, infrastructure, should that happen. So again, out of the $920 million, we've got the Advanced Manufacturing Fund in Ontario, the AMF. Details to be released. We're working on that. 200 million of that 920. So advanced manufacturing, of course, being a priority, manufacturing in general being a priority in Ontario these days. We're certainly there to address that one as well. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for the additions on that and details to be coming out in the coming months. We extended the Eastern Ontario Development Program. This is our community development piece, and continue support for business development and job creation. So what do we do here? We are developing, commercializing market-driven technologies through industry-led partnerships. What does that mean? It can mean a lot of different things. Our ARC initiative, for instance, was very, very successful. We helped about 580 companies across Southern Ontario over the few years that it was available. That was, again, a business-led, or led by post-secondary institutions, but with business-led due diligence and market sort of assessment and all that. Businesses, the small ones, were able to partner with about 24 PSIs across Southern Ontario and gave really good results for that. We also get, again, the next generation of leaders in businesses in Southern Ontario through our Scientists and Engineers in Businesses initiative. Particular mention to OCE through their Smart Start program. We invested in Smart Start to fund not only entrepreneurship training, but the seeding of seed funds for whatever business that might come out of them. Venture Start as well across all of Southern Ontario, 12 regional innovation center leverage doing the same thing, plus a number of PSIs and accelerator centers as well that have either fellowships or their own smaller startup seed programs. Encouraging businesses, NFPs, and post-secondaries in Southern Ontario to collaborate on projects. These also can be of larger scale. For instance, the McMaster Auto Research Center, really an industry-facing project for the automotive industry. The recently announced Fraunhofer project in advanced manufacturing at Western University. You'll see a booth here, Data.base from Communitech. That's a really good one. A lot of companies sort of coalescing around a cluster of intelligent database, quantum key encryption, next generation satellites, those kinds of things. But you'll see that they're company-based and they're company-led, right? Southern Ontario Water Consortium is another one that we do. So this is how we do what we do in general. Business development, access to investment capital. We've done that through investing in business innovation, through our angel seed capital as well. Helping startups leverage angel, that's what we've done. We've also, through our Prosperity Initiative, also have had other investments in businesses as well. So we're working with, we may be, shall we say, fully committed our money, but there are third parties and other parties out there with our money that you can actually engage. So we're working with industry-related partners to promote the growth of small and medium businesses. Ontario Chamber of Commerce, Canadian MedTech Manufacturers, Yves Landry Foundation, CME, their SMART program, SOFI, the Southern Ontario Fund for Innovation, Investment in Innovation, through our CFDC clients, right? These are funds available now, leverage available now, expertise available now. So you don't have to wait for us in 2014 for a certain amount of this. You can already keep going. We also engage in industrial and regional benefits through the aerospace industry, again, working with Government Ontario and industry associations for regional intelligence on our firm's capabilities, promoting the companies to potential prime contractors and international trade shows. We also organize and help organize and participate in company visits and advocating domestic and international free trade shows. So this industrial regional benefits. Southern Ontario is, at least federally, one of the places that was kind of missing that piece, and so we've taken that on. There are other initiatives in the province, very, really good ones, as well, to make sure Ontario is at the world stage, and you can see them outside there. We're adding our hat in, certainly on the federal stage as well. Community development, 37 CFDCs, delivering funds across all Ontario, and as well as the Eastern Ontario Development Program. There's a world of success in these programs, in the funding that we've done, from entrepreneurship to strategic plans to things such as flood relief disaster up in the north there, right? So we do it all. Our impact, about 25,000 jobs as a result of these stimulus investments, particularly the SOAI, the Southern Ontario Advantage initiatives that you've heard about. They're about, again, 420 million, 240 projects, 5,000 plus organizations we partnership with, 1.2 billion over annually in additionally leveraged investments, which is pretty good. So we've leveraged an extra billion with the money that we've gotten in terms of just in our SOI plus the other stimulus. We really do remain dedicated to working. So, we might not have all the money that we wanted today, but we have the expertise, the services, and the connections for you as well. We remain dedicated in all of our fronts. So we'll continue, obviously, to invest in tailored programming, and that mostly is going, you'll see that in after April 1st, 2014 being announced. There are some announcements that we still do have because there are stuff already in the system. Advocate, again, regional, community, business, and economic interests. If you're a region and there's economic and other business interests, really don't feel shy to engage us and see what we can do to help connect, either intergovernmentally or otherwise. Maybe promote some ideas and see who else we can connect you, either with people with money, really, funding, and people with resources, trying to get your region or your cluster or your community or your business groups really, really performing and really, really well connected. There's another one as well. I'm sorry. Advocate, we catalyze, we do actually provide resources, human, financial, as required, right? So sometimes we do get people out to help pathfind and so on and so forth. We have Ask Experts here over at OC. Very simple things, right? Very simple things. And convener, we do bring together various partners on things to try and get larger partnerships, very cross-regional partnerships that they can use either for globally, for a better region, or otherwise. So we're an investor, we're an advocate, we're a catalyst, and we're a convener. And that never changes. Money or not, mandate or not, that never changes. So everything we do, the technological, the community, and the business development, we do one of those four things. So do stay connected, because we're going to have a bright future together, I hope, right? We're going to have new funding. We're going to have we have ongoing activities that we do. Follow us on Twitter, because every once in a while we do Twitter. And see us at booth number 705 for any other questions that you might have. 705 is over there. There's Laura over here, and another FedDev person over there, sort of happily munching away. They're ready, and we've got prime real estate. So they say location, location, location. So we're here for you. You don't even have to walk far. That's how much we're here for you. So that's that. Are there any questions? So I've explained it all, and that's really good. Oh, we do have one question. And again, if you're shy, I'll just be right there afterwards anyways. I think I'm the last person before lunch.
Hi.
Yes.
I'm always totally frustrated that so many programs depend on affiliations with Ontario Centres of Excellence, with institutions, education. Which of the FedDev programs are available for private investing sectors of startups?
So private, see, like a private incubator, you're saying?
No incubators. Just when you're starting companies, and you don't want to get involved with universities or OCE or Mars or anyone, will FedDev support the creation of those support the development of those companies?
It really depends on where we're able to play and we're most best able to play in a business development sort of perspective. So in the past, we have invested in individual companies, but these were more so existing companies for expansion. We have an economic development mandate, and so that does skew where we really operate at times. If it's a company just to start up a company from, say, fresh or maybe another line or a spin-off of another company, if you don't want to get involved with third parties, that's a lot of places where we do play. That said, we did certainly presently within the Prosperity Initiative have that open, there's an open window there to present your idea, and we've supported larger companies expanding out in lines, and even less mature companies, we'll say, in their development. It really depends on the economic impact that you're really able to deliver, trying to deliver, and so on, the partnerships that within the company, your capacity. So it's about the ideas. And we find that, to be honest, there's an enormous amount of expertise throughout the last 5 years that we've been operating in those third party, or like the OCE, like the RICS. If that's not really your, if you've done that already and you're on another level, then there are other innovation partners as well we can try and hook you up with as well.
Are is the matching fund program totally out of money against angel investors?
Is the matching fund totally out of money?
Yeah.
I mean, our funding to all the angels is committed. Whether or not they've spent all that yet, because there's tranches to do and so on and so forth, you'd have to the National Angel
Right.
Association of Ontario. You'd contact them.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's it. All right. Thank you. And again, we're just over there. So if you have any questions.
Thank you, Taras. This concludes our Innovation Partners presentation session for this morning. Thank you again for joining us here in this theater. And this afternoon, the session commences again at 2 p.m. for more presentations, so we look forward to seeing you there. Once again, thank you to all of the speakers this morning.